Hello and welcome to the Excel Cave. Today we're going to talk about opening text files in Excel. I'm going to show you an example of how to open a Tab Delimited text file, Comma Delimited text file, and also show you how to open a fixed width text file that has no delimiters. So we'll get started here. The first thing you need to do is make sure you have an Excel workbook open. Doesn't matter which workbook it is. It can also be a blank workbook. We just need to have Excel open in order to be able to open a text file within it. So now we're going to go to your top ribbon and select File and Open, or you can also use the keyboard shortcut Control and the letter O. So we'll go to Open. I have been opening text files already, but you might find that when you navigate to the text file you want to open, you don't see it. This is what it might look like. It might be just empty, or you might only see Excel files. That's because usually by default, Excel is used to opening other Excel files, so you need to come down to the right-hand corner of your open window and select all files, and then your text file should appear. Then we're going to select the file we want to open. The next thing that will pop up is the text import wizard box. It'll show you a little preview of what your data looks like down here in this preview window. It might or might not be obvious what the delimiter is. If there is a delimiter, the delimiter is what separates the data by columns in your text file. Usually it's, space or tab or a comma or a semicolon. Sometimes it's a vertical bar. Could be any of those. There might not be any. It might just be certain fixed spacing or something like that. So you have two options up here. You have delimited and fixed width. Normally what you would want to do is start out with delimited and hit next. If you need to go back and make it fixed width, there'll be a back button on this next screen where we can go back if there's no delimiter at all. So we're going to select delimited and hit next, and you can see up here there are options for the delimiter you want to choose. Normally Excel defaults to tab, and you can see down here in this preview box, everywhere a tab occurs in your text file, Excel inserts a vertical bar down here. So that this is telling you this is what it's going to look like if you import it into Excel. So it's pretty clear now that this file is a tab delimited file, so that's pretty cut and dry. There's not much to this really. Just to kind of show you what the other options might look like. As you can see here in this second row of the first column, there's the word first space quarter. And then in the third column, second row, there's east space district. If we were to insert space delimiter, that would separate anything that had a space between it. So you can see now first and quarter are in two separate columns, and east and district are in two separate columns. That's how the delimiters work. I mean, that's how Excel creates columns based on what the delimiters are. So we don't want that. We want first quarter to be in one column and east district to be in one column. So we're just going to select the tab option here and hit next. The final screen of the import wizard just has some formatting options here. You can select the column and do formatting. I find it's easier just to format once you have the data in Excel. I don't know that this is really necessary or needed that much. There's also an option to select the column and then check this box for do not import, and it will skip that column and import the others. So that's how that works. So we'll hit finish, and I'll blow this up so you can see it. So that's just the data imported. Everywhere there was a tab in your text file, Excel made a break and made that into a new column. So this is what our file looked like before we imported it. You can see Excel identified this point as a tab, this point is a tab, this point is a tab, and inserted a new column in each of those. So that's how that works. The final thing you really need to make sure you do before you close out this file, if you're wanting to save it and keep it in Excel, you need to go to File and Save As. And you can see right now it's still a text file, so make sure you change that to an Excel file, because if you close it out and don't save it, it's not going to be in Excel the next time you open. You'll just have to do this again. So make sure you do that. So now we're going to open a Comma Delimited file. So instead of going to File and Open, I'm just going to hit the keyboard shortcut Control and the letter O, and we'll select our file. And now here in our preview window, you can see the data. Well, there's quotes. We'll talk about that in a minute. But there's also a comma here where it looks like, you know, the header is employee ID, so then there's employees, and we've got a name, and then a comma, and then a department, and a comma, and then a location. So clearly we've got some type of delimiter. It appears to be a comma. So we'll hit delimited for the option here because it does look like we have a delimiter here. So we'll hit next. And you can see it's on tab right now currently. There are no vertical bars, so it's pretty obvious this is not a tab delimited file. We hit space, there's spaces, but you know, like I said earlier, we see commas there, so this is clearly a comma delimited file, and everywhere there's comma, Excel inserts a vertical bar. But you do see that under employee, there's a last name and then a comma and then a first name, and I'm sure you're asking, well, why did Excel not put a vertical bar there and make that a column? Same deal for city and state. Well, let's go back and look at the previous screen. One thing you'll notice, unlike the first file we opened, the data is enclosed in quotation marks. And if you go to the next screen and look in the top middle, you'll see a text qualifier, and then there's quotation marks there. What Excel does with that, and this is what it is by default, and if you import a file and it had quotation marks, it is set to text qualifier being double quotes. And what that does is Excel looks at that and says, okay, if you have data in double quotes, everything that's within those double quotes is treated as one block of text. It doesn't matter if there's a delimiter in there, whether it be a comma or a space or a tab or whatever, it is treated as one block of text. So delimiters are ignored when that is the case. So that's why some, you know, these other commas inserted a column, but, you know, the last name, first name, the comma in between, and then the comma between the city and the state did not insert columns. Why? Because both were enclosed in double quotes. So Excel, because of the text qualifier option, said no, this is one block of text. We're ignoring the comma because they're enclosed in quotes. So that's how that works. So we'll hit next. We don't want to format anything or skip a column, so we'll just hit finish, and I'll blow this up. And you can see every spot that had a comma where the comma was not enclosed in quotes separated the data into separate columns. So finally, what we're going to do is look at a text file that does not have a delimiter at all and what you would need to do with those. So there's nothing like a comma or a semicolon, or, you know, maybe it has spaces, but the spacing is just not in a way that you can delimit by the spacing. So again, I'm going to hit Control and the letter O to open. I'm going to select our file. Now, even though we already know we're using fixed here, just because I've opened the file before, it's always a good idea just to select the delimited option just to see if you can delimit on anything. Clearly this is not, you know, the tab option is already checked, and there's no vertical bars here, so we know this is not a tab delimited file. So the next thing we could pick is space. Well, yeah, there's some spacing, but if you look at the second row here, you know, we have a city and a state, but if you look, there's some two-word cities. There's Las Vegas, and then the city below it is Providence, which is one word. So space delimited gets these out of line and then moves data to the right and gets it out of sync. There's also two-word fields under the description column, so you can see this says iPad case, whereas this, you know, this down here says camera. So you can't use space delimited because there's two words in some fields and one word in those same fields. So we need to hit the back option and then go to fixed width, because we need to manually adjust the columns ourselves. So when you hit fixed width, Excel will try and select the columns for you. They'll put vertical bars where they think you want the data. If you don't want the data there, you don't want a vertical or a column separator, you can double click on it and it'll disappear. If you want to insert one, you can just click anywhere and it will appear and create a column separator. You can also just click on one that's already there and move it if you need to move it a little bit. It's a good idea to scroll down and just make sure all your data's in line in your preview window down here. So we'll hit next. And we don't want to format or skip a column. We'll just hit finish. And I'll blow this up for you a little bit here. So you can see we used the fixed width option and just manually adjusted the columns ourselves. So that's what you would need to do if you don't have a delimiter in your text file, and you know, maybe the spacing is weird that you just can't do a space delimited because, like I said, there's some fields that have two words with spaces between them, while other words in that same field are just a single word. That's kind of where you would need to just manually pick the column spacing yourself. So that is when you would need to use fixed width. Thanks for watching, guys.